we'll get into, thank you, the COO Governance Group. So Communities of Opportunity, as you may know, is a unique community public-private partnership funded jointly by King County through the Best Starts for Kids levy and also through the Seattle Foundation, as Chris mentioned. And COO is really all about supporting transformational change in communities through 3 interrelated strategies: our place-based and cultural community partnerships, our systems and policy change grantees that are funded through the Seattle Foundation, and the learning community, which really focuses on capacity building and learning supports. And you'll see here these lovely faces of some of our current and past governance group members. And when I am finished screen sharing, I will also put some links into the chat here that go directly to the COO Governance Group guiding principles and some other contextual information. So the COO Governance Group / Advisory Board, what do? They provide strategic leadership, direction, and oversight for the COO initiative as a whole. And they are also responsible for promoting our mission, vision, and values, and serving as the CEO / Best Starts for Kids Advisory Board with respect to the Best Starts for Kids levy proceeds that are a part of the CEO budget. Governance group members champion anti-racist and pro-equity values, elevate community voice in all aspects of COO, provide outreach, networking, and build relationships with other community leaders and groups as ambassadors for COO, gather input on issues relevant to communities of opportunity in GG, and promote COO activities. We also ask that members, commit to active participation, complete the requisite King County board member training sessions, and importantly are aware of and transparent with potential conflicts of interest. The governance group composition is changing a little bit in this upcoming 2022 through 2027 Best Starts for Kids levy sort of period of time that we are a part of. And we're increasing to be a minimum of 20 members, a maximum of 24 members. Members, there's a few seats that are reserved for different groups. We have seats that are reserved for members from our funded partners, again, our place-based and cultural community partnerships, our systems and policy change partners, and partners in the learning community, as well as 20% of the membership is reserved for community at large members. So community members who are not part of a funded place-based systems and policy change or learning community group, Indigenous, urban native community or tribal representatives, members with system and sector knowledge specific to COO result areas, housing, health, economic opportunity, and community connection or civic engagement. And we also have a few seats that are reserved for representatives from King County government, as well as the Seattle Foundation. And Andrea, as our CEO director, is a non-voting member of the board. So the application process and timeline, our nominations committee, which is currently made up of current and former governance group members supported by CEO staff. They are advising on this process. They will be supporting outreach and helping to review applications and make recommendations. We will be holding a few more, hopefully, informational sessions like this one throughout the month of January, leading up to the application due date on February 4th. And we hope to quickly turn around recommendations to the King County Executive in February so that new members can join by April of this year. So with that, I'm really going to turn over the rest of our time to hear from you all. Any questions that you have about COO, about the governance group, about Michael's experience on GG and really being with CEO from the beginning. Here are just a few questions that came in early through the registration survey. But just really want to open it up to the group. And these are just some starter pieces for you, Michael. So take it away.
Thanks, Whitney. And as Whitney said, I mean, these are just some questions that came in, but it's a conversation. So feel free to throw out some questions along the way. As Whitney mentioned, I have been a member of the governance group since the beginning. In my previous role at Seattle Foundation as the Vice President of Community Programs, I was part of the founding governance structure and working alongside of the county in terms of creating COO. And for me, one of the things that's been really great in terms of the governance group experience is there is definitely intentionality at the very beginning between Seattle Foundation and King County of ensuring that the governance group actually had voice and power and influence. And I mean, all of you have worked with either philanthropy or the public sector in kind of these advisory ways, know that sometimes that's given lip service, that really when it comes down to it, you do all the work around the table, but then the funders might go back into their kind of secret squirrely room and make a decision that trumps what the advisory committee has come up with. Here, we're really clear that the county has one voice, one vote. Seattle Foundation has one voice, one vote. Governance group, every member has one voice, one vote. So that way, it truly was true ownership by the governance group. And as a result, the engagement of the community members on the governance group, and then the partnership with this county and with Seattle Foundation was real. So we could actually get into some good hearty debate about things, but wherever the group ended up is where the group ended up. So for me to be able to see that and see how the governance group really took ownership of things in terms of stewarding the resources, but also the strategies and its work with staff and then externally with community partners has been really rewarding. And I think as we think about the next iteration of the governance group, it's maintaining that, if not even growing it more. So that's, I'm just going to take a quick look at the chat, but that's one piece that I wanted to make sure that I threw out there. Are there any questions that folks might have or anything else that you would like me to expound upon?
Hamdi, I think I have many questions, but yeah. At least the one that I could think right now is, I know that you all have been doing a great job in doing what sometimes I say you think it is right. But sometimes the community connection might not be as strong as it is supposed to be. And that is what always increased my curiosity. So my question is, are we going, regardless of who is selected or not selected, That's not an issue, but always change is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brings even the ocean, if there is no wind blowing, it will not steer and then will not be oxygenated. So to give that oxygen continuously, how many years, or what's the term for a member to serve? That's a question. With that expectation of like continuous change is the solution. That's the question I would ask you. How many months, how many years, how many people are supposed to be in that seat?
Yeah. Whitney and Andrea, do one of you want to answer that? Now I see Chris has a question too.
Sure, I can answer that quickly. So the terms are 3-year terms for members. We I think maybe have some folks who have chosen to stay on longer in this sort of first phase of communities of opportunity. But the expectation for applicants is that you're applying for a 3-year term.
Thank you.
Chris?
Thanks. I think this is probably for Michael, Andrea, and Whitney. I'm just interested in, and Andrea, I had sent a note to this, how do you see that next governance group's work building off of or looking different than the previous governance group's work? If there's particular priorities, given we're talking about a renewal phase, shift in county leadership, all of that. Just interested in just kind of what you see as kind of the natural. And I like Hamdi's point about oxygenating. That's like it's a good thing. It's like what's the freshness of what's about to come that helps guide who might be good in this role. Thanks.
Yeah. Great question, Chris. Andrea, do you want to take the first?
Sure, I'd be happy to. As Chris mentioned, we've been operating since about 2014, and then we had an increase in resources with 2016 with the first Best Starts for Kids levy. So there have been changes over time, over the last 6 years, 6 to 8 years that COO has been operating. And most of the time, we've relied on our governance group to provide direction initially on how the resources that we had could impact greater health and well-being in King County, specifically with an emphasis on communities that were the furthest from opportunity. And so there a lot of the ideas that came from our governance group have been guidance for experimentation, I would say, over the first 6 years. And so with that information, I think that the governance group's role is really going to be to help look and listen listen hard with data and information from the partners who have been doing the work. And over the first 6 years, we've extended funding for existing partners in the next year in order to allow for some of that continuity of what have we learned and then where do we think we're going. We've called it a reset in some ways with the foundational values and direction that have been set for the initiative. So there's a lot of room, I think, for more creativity, some critical conversations around how we can be most effective with the resources that we have. We know that we are a part of a larger ecosystem of resources and increasingly more interest in doing equity-based, community-driven, solution-based kind of work. So we're not the only players in this game. I think we're an influential player in King County and want to be able to really think critically with the governance group around how we can leverage and of their connections, our connections, so that we can get to our collective goals. So we're really looking for a lot of energy and ideas, people who are really going to be pragmatic and also balancing the tensions of government funding with a really clear, interest in doing things differently than the status quo. So I'll let Michael or Whitney jump into the thoughts that I've maybe introduced.
Yeah. No, Andre, I think that was great. I think the only thing I would add, and the opportunity to have greater impact as it relates to systemic issues. And Andrea brought it up, and each and every one of you know this as well. You could divert all government funding or all philanthropic funding toward a particular issue, and that doesn't necessarily mean that issue is going to be solved. It's not just about funding, but it's also about policy and system change, and thinking through the opportunity of the governance group or kind of this reset of marrying real community input and perspective, voices that are truly on the ground and know what's happening in communities, and as a result, what the levers of change are in order to get to that place. But connecting that to those who are within systems who can control resources and or policy, and moving the system in a new direction. Andrea and Chris and Whitney have heard this from me many times, but part of the aspiration as it relates to communities of opportunity when we first built it was to actually eliminate the inequities. And we have, through Best Starts for Kids and investment from Seattle Foundation, and then the work of our partners in community, are seeing some really great outputs. And now, it's at a point now where we need to get to transformative outcomes. And I think the governance group's role in being truth tellers, being advisors, being bridge builders, being ambassadors, it is going to be really critical as we communities of opportunity takes that next step.
That's helpful, thank you. Because on some level, like, test me if I'm hearing this correctly, you're kind of looking for people who have rootedness in communities most impacted, not necessarily representing a set organization, but someone who's rooted in particular communities, in a broad set of communities, and has the content and some issue expertise, but also reach in terms of bridge building and leveraging and building relationships across sectors. Because it sounds like it's like the first phase was really about establishing a vision and a pathway and a set of outcomes that are COO specific. And now it's about, like, how do you take that and how do you deepen it, accelerate it, and extend it by the leverage across more sectors and influencing more decision makers who have even more money to make this community-led, kind of policy systems change in communities, especially BIPOC communities most impacted. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yes, you think you're seeing the head nod from Andre and I, but I think that's right on target, Chris. Right on target.
Appreciate it. That's very helpful.
I have another question, but also I'm coming from a place where I'm struggling. Sometimes leaders don't like the truth, all the truth. And nobody's different than the other. I'm talking about leaders, including me. But I would like us to have moments of truth as well. Is that okay, or should we just keep quiet and not say a word?
I think moments of truth are great.
Well, thank you very much. And that is not to make anything look bad, but I think one of the hardest being on that side, of the equation, and having been supported by CEO at some point, there's one thing that I liked about Andrea, saying that CEO does not mean that it's like the tool. It's opening the gate for you, but if you want to walk the walk, it's your job to walk the walk and make the fruits that you are seeking. And my second application was not renewed. That's okay. I was not, probably I didn't qualify, or whatever happened. But then I talked to myself. You know how when you are rejected, you get angry and you talk to yourself and say like, what should I do? Then I said like, what should I do? And honestly, I can say that was a great moment in my life where I used her advice or her wisdom to make sure that I moved the needle for my community, and I did move. I have some tangible, reasonable results of community development and how do I move, and learning from the systems that I have been part of, or the discussions that I have been part of, or the boards that I have been part of. So with that said, we talk about community connection. We were rejected to be part of that connection in CTAC area. And it was hard to even complain about it, because people will interpret that you don't like so-and-so, or you are this or that. It negatively impacts you. So I was really looking, maybe there will be no opportunity to say that. If you think that us as communities or organizations are all good people, we are not, including me. We're not good people. And it is what I am blaming is that the resource that we are lacking. But then we don't look beyond what we can do, which I thought it's great to share with the team, that people need to understand that this is your first footstep to thinking through what you need to do for your next steps, but not just sit and ask for money and for money and for money, or be part of that board for the sake of your own interest. This is my moment of truth. I think these are values that I think it is very important that we put forward when we are definitely giving an orientation to whoever qualifies to be hired. Just an advice as from my position as a community leader and my age as feeling that I'm wise enough to contribute to what I have learned. I don't hear you.
Sorry, it's like, I appreciate that. And Andre, I'm not sure if there's anything you want to add, but Hamdi, I think you hit on something that I think, just in a spirit of transparency, I mean, I think, it's what governance group members have struggled with, and maybe we'll always struggle with, and I think that's, on one hand, and you'll know what I mean when I say it, and just for everyone, I mean, I think this is kind of the dynamic, and it's one of the great parts about the governance group is that having a chance to get together every month and work through kind of from a systemic level, but then also kind of like, there are things that happen within community that we have knowledge about or we have access to that impacts the strategies or the funding that's been invested, and the creating a safe space. And I think that's been one of the hallmarks of the governance group, is having a safe space to actually talk, debate, and sometimes we have to come back to it the next month because there are just things that occur, and as a result, you're just not in a 2-hour meeting going to get conclusion on it. But I bring that up because, I mean, this is, and all of you are leaders and you've been involved in community and you know this. And I think this is one of the wonderful aspects of having a cross-sector table is in many other spaces, that type of dialogue and Hamdi, what you just brought, doesn't get surfaced. And as a result, like it's easy to skate past it or just not recognize it or, want to put it over in the corner. I think because of the composition of the governance group, those things are always on the table. Now, how they get managed and how we work through it is always a process. And that's honestly what doing community work is. But I think, with the governance group understanding its responsibility, which is varied. It's advisory board to the county, overseeing resources and strategy through or from communities of opportunity, but then representing various sector or community organizations. And, those are some really difficult things to navigate through. But once again, I think the piece that has been, and kudos to Andrea for creating the environment for it, is to have the space where that truth telling can occur, because then it allows for better things to be created as a result. So Andrea, I'm not sure if you want to add anything else to it.
Thank you.
Mostly thank you, Hamdi and Michael. I think that word truth telling and the way we also describe it a lot is this group keeps things real. And I think that with my time in COO, I'm always reassured knowing that when I'm in the most uncomfortable positions, I'm growing a lot. And I can say that we have been challenged. There's been a lot of growth. And it's because of people's willingness to be really vulnerable and bring some direct kind of truth-telling, real statements to the governance group in a way that builds relationships. So we are looking forward to being able to support the governance group in doing that. It's going to be a whole new group, and how to recreate that space with new people is going to take some time. And so we recognize that it's going to be a whole new set of kind of dynamics that we are excited actually to kind of embrace with folks who want to be part of that.
Thank you.
Shiho.
Hello, great to see you all. I have a question around what types of decision making do you do in these meetings or throughout the year? Can you share some examples of what that might look like?
Yeah, good to see you. So really, I mean, even though it's called advisory, it really is a board. So think everything from budget approval to funding, allocation, strategy, development and approval. COO has a talented team. So, thankfully there isn't a lot of day-to-day work that the governance group members need to do. But the partnership between the team and the governance group really, it does reflect a lot of what you would see in any nonprofit organization, with the staff and then board. So the board recognizes the outstanding work of the team and is there to provide input and advice. But then in terms of, kind of actual approval or decision making, it does tend to be resource allocation or, providing more input to staff recommendations. Andrea, Whitney, anything that you two would add to that?
I think that is the core of a lot of their work, and then as we've been redefining strategy, then it's specific to how the strategies related to funding. Like one aspect is funding, how we are organizing our strategies and prioritizing strategies within that.
You. And a follow-up question to that would be, who is the governance group accountable to? Is it the county? Is it COO? Is it the funders? What does that look like?
That is a great question, and I don't think it's a cop out to say like all of the above, which once again makes it a really hard role. So there's accountability to the funders, Seattle Foundation and King County, because it is also an advisory board of Best Starts for Kids. There's an accountability to the King County Council. And I don't want to speak for every governance group member, and I also recognize that my affiliation with COO and the governance group is an institutional one, representing having one of Seattle Foundation seats. But I think every member of the governance group has if they were putting their primary accountability, it is to community and ensuring that the county and Seattle Foundation and other funders are doing the right things, related to equity, related to empowerment and co-design that benefits BIPOC communities. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Julia, Tremaine, I want to also give you three an opportunity if you have any questions or comments for us.
Thank you. No, my question was really similar to Shiho's of like where the accountability is and who the responsibility is to. So I really appreciate you all expanding on that, and Hamdi and Shiho for asking very eloquent and Chris questions. So thank you.
We only have about 3 more minutes left here. The time goes very quickly. I wonder, Michael, if you have any words of advice for future GG members?
I definitely say, if you are interested, go through the application process. And once again, I understand, I have a different role and affiliation, but I will say, and this kind of goes to Hamdi's, truth-telling piece, for 6 years, 7 years as a member of the governance group, but then also as one of the co-chairs of the governance group, I have not had more fun with any other group. I walk in and I walk out inspired by the folks that I work with, challenged by the folks that I work with. It's a very safe space, and as a result, it actually allows for a lot of fun and challenging discussions to occur. But we're all united around one common belief, and that's the importance of community empowerment and the importance of co-design work and the importance of actually building healthy, thriving communities that work for everyone. So why wouldn't you want to be a part of a group that is actually aligned in that way and showing tons of love and support towards each other in a very, very safe way to move the needle in its way. So I would say that if you want to be a part of something like that, go through the application process.
That's great. So I think we have approximately 30 seconds left. So I will just quickly say, if you have any questions as you're going through the application or questions after this info session, please feel free to reach out to Andrea or myself. We again hope to schedule a few more information sessions with current and former governance group members. So stay tuned for those dates to be released on our website and through our newsletter as well. Any other final words? Andrea, Michael?
Can I just say that I know many people who are on the call have been part of COO's journey, and I really appreciate what you've done through your work with community and in community. It is informing all the work that happens at COO, and so I especially appreciate that you are also interested in learning more, about this opportunity. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Maybe my final word is we appreciate your work, Andrea, as well as all of you here. And we look forward to see a change from the community side and seeing what that change brings. And Happy New Year to you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend, everyone. It's good to see you.
Thank you,
Be
Chris.
well, everyone.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.